Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Sophie, and this channel is chronicling my journey of living my best life with multiple chronic health conditions. I will preface this by saying I'm not a medical professional, and please do not do what I did. Those are the two biggest takeaways of the video. That being said, last Thursday the 19th, I was working, and as I've said before, I do a lot of talking, a lot of phone calls, and I noticed I was really having to concentrate on how to move my tongue and my mouth, which was odd. I continued working. I did have like a short little break where I wasn't making calls, and it sort of got better. I had my thyroid ultrasound that morning, so I tried to Google whether or not like a thyroid ultrasound could cause like a stroke or a TIA because of the fibromuscular dysplasia I have, and it was basically like that would be very unusual because they're not like pressing that hard and all of that. And I was like, okay, maybe it's just a one-off. Maybe my jaw muscles just got fatigued and that's what happened. So I continued making my calls, and after a little while, it was obviously not getting, like it wasn't resolving, it had started again, or it was getting worse. And then I was noticing some tingling all the way down my left side. So I let my supervisor know that I was going to the emergency room. I let her know what was going on, let her know that I had calls that afternoon, and I obviously was not going to be able to make them. She said not to worry about it, just get to the ER. So then the decision came to sort of how to get to the ER, which I know, given the circumstances, is a silly question. But this is where one of the many don't do what I did come in. First of all, if you have symptoms, don't wait before getting to the ER. And this is call 911. Don't wait, call 911. That is not what I decided to do because the hospitals I am closest to are not familiar with me and my medical history. Yes, there's sort of like a state medical record that they could go and look through, but they're not going to do that in an emergency. So I wanted to go somewhere that was at least familiar with me and my history and had easy access to some of my medical records. And the hospital where I used to work is also a stroke center, and I didn't know if any of the two hospitals that are close to me were. I have since learned that one of them are, so that's good to know. But I'm still not in their medical record, so it's definitely not an ideal situation. Anyway, I then sort of pondered if I wanted to drive to my community hospital where I used to work, and that I'm in their medical records and stuff, or if I wanted to drive further and try to make it to Hopkins, which is where I think I should have gone, or I needed to go. But I didn't want to chance it. I knew I should not be driving to begin with, and Hopkins involves an interstate, so didn't want to do that. Drove to the community hospital, everything was fine, there was no issues I never had weakness, I never had blurry vision or anything like that. Get to the hospital, I register, I let them know what's going on. By this point, my speech is sort of obviously not right, at least obvious to me. I guess if you don't know what I sound like, you wouldn't know. But I'm also no longer trying to sound normal. I'm just talking like I would, and just sort of letting it come out as natural given the circumstances possible versus trying to sound normal because I'm at work. And it was a lot worse than I knew it was because apparently I was trying to sound normal a lot more than I realized. And they called a code stroke. So I had like the hospital, the ER doctor, I had the neurologist, and they kept me as a code stroke. I went to CT scan. They did a regular CT before, like, I guess all of the orders were in. The neurologist came in, was talking to me. While I was in triage area, they were like seeing if both sides felt the same, and my entire left side was basically numb. It felt like there was like a small film over it, Like, I could still feel them touching me. It just felt like there was a small barrier between their hand and my skin. So it was basically difficulty speaking, numbness and tingling all the way down the left side of my body, like from my head all the way down. If you've been following the channel from the beginning, you would know that from the beginning, I get sort of numbness and tingling on my left side when I talk for periods of time. It hasn't happened in a while, and I'd totally forgotten that it ever did happen when I was in the hospital. I don't know if that would have made a difference in what happened. So in the CT room, neurologist comes in, sort of explaining the story to him again as best I can, and I let them know that I have fibromuscular dysplasia, which is the most important thing for them to know given that I could be having a stroke, because it is sort of irregularities in arteries, and I do have that in my carotid and my vertebrals, so there's definitely a possibility of dissection and stuff like that. And the neurologist was kind of questioning me, like, well, what makes you think you have that, and what symptom did you have? And the doctors that were in, like, the little CT room in the back to sort of shield them from the radiation actually came out to tell him that it was in my records, that I do indeed have it. But he kind of kept pressing, like, well, no, like, I still want to know, like, what were your symptoms, like, what made them go that direction? And it was really weird because I'm having trouble speaking to begin with. I'm obviously not thinking the greatest because I'm having some sort of neurological emergency, and he's delaying my CAT scan. Anyway, mini rant over. Get the CAT scan, go to the ER room. I'm told everything looks clear. They decided not to give me any, like, TPA. They use a different chemical, but same thing, that would go in and, like, bust a clot if I had one, because they don't see one, and if you give it and you don't need it, you can bleed, and that's obviously a whole other problem we don't want. They said my symptoms were minor and they were gonna keep me overnight to monitor me. So I stayed overnight. The plan was originally that I was gonna get an MRI the next day to see if they saw anything there, but I didn't get an MRI until late Friday, like afternoon, early evening, around like 4:30, 5 o'clock. So then I had to stay overnight again, so I was discharged on Saturday. As far as symptoms resolving, they were resolving by Thursday evening. A lot of things were resolving a lot. My speech was sort of back to baseline, or very, very close to baseline by like midnight on Thursday. And I'd say like the numbness and tingling in my face was the last to go. I don't remember if that went like Thursday like night shift, or if it was Friday during the day. But then Friday after the MRI, I had horrible cramps in my lower extremities. They were rather painful. I was like rubbing them really hard. My muscles were twitching a lot. I took videos just because I'd never had something like that happen where it was so sort of like dramatic. Like my toe would actually get like stuck in the up position and I couldn't move it back to like neutral. I also, starting Thursday, Friday, was getting headaches, very brief headaches lasting only a couple seconds. I don't know if the nurses told the doctor any of that. I don't know if they told them about the headaches or the cramping and the twitching. I have no idea. I did let the neurologist know I was being investigated for mitochondrial disease. I asked him about the possibility of this being a stroke-like episode, and he immediately dismissed it. And that was sort of my second red flag where I was like, maybe I should have drove to Hopkins, because they would not have questioned the fibromuscular dysplasia while I'm literally in the, like, sitting on the CT bed, waiting to get the CT scan. And I don't think they would have been dismissive of the possibility of a stroke-like episode. But obviously that's neither here nor there because I didn't go to Hopkins. So then MRI came back, it was clear they didn't see anything there either. So my discharge paperwork said like I was admitted for dysarthria, which is trouble speaking, and numbness and tingling, and they think I had a TIA. They did put me on Plavix, which is another sort of antiplatelet drug, sort of like aspirin, for 21 days. They had considered a statin just because that's sort of protocol, but considering my muscular symptoms and if I have mitochondrial disease, that would be contraindicated. So they did not. My cholesterol isn't that bad to begin with. So it was sort of surprising they would even suggest it. My other providers have not suggested that at all. Granted, I had not had a TIA before, but that's besides the point. So I am working with a dietitian, so we are going to try to get my LDL down because that's the only thing that's elevated. And it very well may be diet related. I don't eat a lot of fiber, so hopefully that will appease the doctors. But I am home, obviously. I'm back to baseline. When I do talk, I am still getting sort of left-sided symptoms, but again, I was getting that before, so I don't know what to think about that. They didn't give me a referral for neurology. I did have my primary doctor put in a referral for neurology at Hopkins. I don't know whether they'll see me or not, but I don't really know who to ask these questions. I've been told, or I know that like the headaches are possibly normal, but the whole left side thing doesn't seem normal to me. Even when they were happening back in like 2020, I'd let my doctors know and no one really took interest in it. And here we are now with a possible TIA. So, that's sort of where things are. Never thought I would be making this video. I have been in contact with my Hopkins provider, especially my fibromuscular dysplasia specialist, because that is sort of the thought as to what the cause of this is, at least from my understanding. I didn't get to speak to the neurologist before I was discharged, so I couldn't ask why, since there's no radiological evidence of anything wrong, why did they go with like a TIA needing antiplatelets versus a metabolic stroke? The hospitalist I talked to couldn't answer those questions. He was like, oh, well, that's what the neurologist said, and you know, your symptoms were one-sided. I'm like, they are in a stroke-like episode. That's why they're called stroke-like episodes, because they are like a stroke. They have the same types of symptoms. A community hospital just isn't the place to go when you have or possibly have weird things going on that not everyone is well educated on. And I knew that when I went there, but that's what I felt safe doing, and I should not have done to begin with. So my Hopkins providers are aware. I uploaded the images from like my CTA and everything for the fibromuscular dysplasia specialist, and I told her like I want you to look at them, and she said if I want like a Hopkins provider to review them like one of their radiologists, there would be like an extra charge, and I said that is a-okay with me. I want you guys to look at them. You guys know what you're talking about. I just did that this morning. This is Wednesday the 25th. I'll be uploading this as soon as I am done yapping. So we'll see what they say. I obviously don't know what happened or why it happened, which is probably the most worrisome part. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if the whole left side thing was ever normal or what it means. So hopefully I'll see a neurologist. I will try to call them today to schedule an appointment. The referral went in yesterday, so I don't even know if they'll allow me to do that. We'll have to see. But yeah, that is where things are at the moment. Anyway, I gotta get to work, and I hope you guys are having a good day whenever it is you are seeing this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.